Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our next installment of the ITBP Fireside Chat series. I'm going to go ahead and invite both of our other speakers here, my co-host Yufeng, of course, and our guest for today. Now, today we're going to be speaking with Landyn Pan. I'll give them a little intro in a bit, but they're a trans and non-binary fitness and nutrition coach. So we're going to be talking to them a little bit more about their fitness journey. And
thank you very much. I'm accepting your request. Let's see if it'll go through. Sometimes it takes a while.
Hey, am I on?
That's weird. Your request disappeared.
I see Sufeng requested to join. I'm accepting your request now, Sufeng. Not sure what's taking so long. It always does this. I cannot see you, Landyn. It's but sometimes that happens on my end. Yeah, Sufeng says that they see you, so that is that happens with me. Oh, I can hear you though.
I don't know if I can't see Sifong.
Yeah, they haven't something's going on with their requests. Sometimes like Instagram Live just loves to give us problems.
For
There
sure.
they are.
For sure.
Hi. Can you hear
Hello.
me?
Hey,
Hi.
Stefan, yes, we can hear you. Can you see Landyn? Is that just me
Yes.
that can't see Landyn?
I think
Okay.
it's your phone's problem. You need to get a new phone.
It's true. My phone is from 2019, so every other
Oh my God.
chat that we do, like I can't see the person that we're talking to. I can just hear them. But it records you and everything, so.
I'm honestly surprised that your phone from 2019 still works because I feel like my phone breaks like every 2 years, like clockwork. I have to get a new one.
Yeah, I take care of my gear. My laptop's from 2015 too, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, we got everybody on in record time, so that was great. Thank you everybody for joining us. I was just saying while I was inviting everybody onto the call that this is another installment of the ITBP Fireside Chats today. Sifeng and I are going to be speaking with a fitness and nutrition coach, Landyn Pan. Before we get into the call, I do want to remind anybody who is hopping on today that we have our annual competition in Atlanta, Georgia. That's going to be on November 23rd. So if you're thinking of competing, or if you're thinking of coming and just cheering on the athletes, registration's still open and tickets are still available, and you can get all the information on how to buy your tickets or sign up on our Instagram. There's a post right there at the top of the feed on how to do that. And it's all also on our website. And if you want to support what we're doing here, you can actually become a member even if you're not competing with us for just $49 a year. So if you stay through this conversation, you get something out of it, then those $49 a year actually helps us sustain all of the programming that we're trying to do and hopefully grow the reach of the ITBP. So yeah, I think that's all I got for the plugs. I want to keep it brief for everybody. And we're short. We only have an hour to talk to Landyn, so we're gonna hop right into it. So, my name is Nat. I use they them pronouns. That's my co-host Sifeng, finally back from Hong Kong. Also uses they them pronouns. And we are going to be chatting with Landyn. Also uses they them pronouns. So we got all of they thems today. And like I said, they're a trans and non-binary fitness and nutrition coach based out of Seattle, Washington. And they are the founder and head coach of Beyond Binary Fitness, which is an all-trans team that they lead dedicated to helping LGBTQ+, but particularly trans folks feel gender-affirmed, confident, and connected to their bodies through strength training, which I think is a beautiful mission. So thank you, Landyn, for taking the time to sit down with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure.
Absolutely, yeah. I see someone in the comments saying, woo, they thems, yes. All the they thems today. So let's hop right into the questions if you don't mind, Landyn. Yeah, we want to get to know a little bit about you first for those of us in the audience who maybe aren't following you and want to get an idea of what you're about. So if you could give us a brief kind of intro into what got you into fitness and lifting specifically, and how that journey of fitness and lifting maybe interacted with your gender journey of either self-discovery or, medical transition or whatever it may be.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I usually tell everybody it's like I got into fitness for kind of like the stereotypical reasons, right? It's like I want to build my body out more and stuff like that. But what I found out of it was, so much more than that. Um, I feel like these days it's kind of like, what is fitness not for me? I feel like it is the source of almost everything, right? It's like my source of groundedness, and it is my source of gender affirmation. I did build muscle through that. Um, my source of confidence, just a sense of routine, structure, um, and basically just like, yeah, my source of health as well.
Hmm.
I feel like when I think about first getting into it, yeah, it kind of was just for those aesthetic reasons because I was also really young, so I feel like health was not really that much of a concern for me at that time. It was just like, I feel like I see all these um guys, cis and trans who have muscle mass, and I wanted that as well. Um, and I just felt like, yeah, my body at the time, even after, 4 or 5 years on T and having top surgery, just didn't really look the way that I wanted. So I think part of how this has helped me with my gender journey, I feel like, is it sort of made me feel complete in a way. I felt like after that, any sort of self-consciousness or nitpicking of the self went away. And with that, I just feel like when you are finally feeling fully aligned with yourself, you're able to just open up your life to a lot of other things, right? So it's like, it's like I'm no longer kind of like thinking about my gender and how to look the way that I want or how to feel the way that I am all the time. It's like I just am, and now I can focus on doing other things, and I feel like the world just opens up.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can you walk us through a little bit more like uh how should I say the word? More technically, I
Yeah.
guess. Like
Uh-huh.
More
like
the
for
specifics, maybe.
more
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
specific. So let's say did you started lifting and everything at a very young age? Like when was that
Mm-hmm.
happen? Like did it happen in high schools or is it
Yeah.
happen later on?
It happened later on. I mean, what's interesting is like I think that I've always been into fitness because it was like, as a kid I was really into like sports and stuff like that, but then
Mm.
post puberty I didn't really do any of that. But it's like I would like have all these magazines and like they would have workouts in them and I do them in my room. So I'd be like, oh, I'm
Mm.
gonna do these push-ups and
Mm.
these ab exercises and stuff like that in my room. But of course it's like you never really like do it for that long. So, I would always do that on and off. I felt like I would do that stuff, but I didn't really know why I
Mhm.
was compelled to do it.
So you started with body weights
Yeah.
training.
Yeah, I
Is that
started with
true?
yeah, I
Oh
started with body weight
wow.
training. Yep. So,
So
um,
when did it happen? What is the moment? When is the moment that you said, "Oh, I need to join a gym." Like,
Yeah, we
I
need to
need to
take
have
this
a
up a
gym
notch.
member.
yeah, for sure. I think I mean I went to the gym here and there. My mom went to the gym a lot, so I
Mm.
remember going with her, but also, it's like I don't really know what I'm doing. And then it was like, yeah, in college after I started T for about 6 months or so, I was like, okay, I really want to try going to the gym now. I went for about 6 months and had good results, but then fell off of it. Didn't know how to cook anything either, so I know food was part of it. I did try to eat more. Couldn't stick to it. I felt like in college I had different priorities. I was like, I'm really trying to just get through my classes, do find internships, have a job and pay my bills and stuff like that. After I got out of college and I started my first job for like a year or so, so I was like 22 at the time. Yeah, that's when I decided to like go to the gym, mainly because I was like, I just feel really unhealthy. And I was talking to my coworker about it. She was like, yeah, I also haven't really exercised in a really long time. And she's like, I've always wanted to try weightlifting. And I was like, ooh. Yeah, me too. And in my head, I'm like, I'm gonna try it again, kind of thing. And her brother was like a frat bro at the time. He like told us, do this workout plan. It was just strong list 5x5. So we did that for a couple months. So that was my very first entry into fitness was strong list 5x5. And I saw, yeah, good weight gain and stuff like that paired with
Can you
nutrition on
explain
that.
to like our audiences what is five by
Yeah.
five?
Yeah, so it's like a very basic barbell strength program. That is like 2 different days, A and B alternating. I think it's like squats,
Yeah.
bench press, and like rows or something one day, and then
I think
squats,
deadlifts the other,
deadlift,
or yeah.
yeah, and shoulder press the other day, and then
Mhm.
their website is like, what about arms? Okay, then add like chin ups and dips to the end. So that's all I did for months was just like these really basic barbell exercises and 5x5, so 5 sets of 5 reps.
Mhm.
It just allows you to increase your strength and the weight that you lift like pretty fast, right? Because 5 reps is really low. You rest for a really long time in between. So that was really fun for me because yeah, it's true. It was very simple. It was like all I had to focus on was learning like really like 5 movements, 6 movements,
Mhm.
right? And then it was like I'm progressing like pretty much every week.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really great, really simple, and allowed me to just really see and be surprised that it's like, oh wow, like it took me about 5 months or so to start getting to my body weight when it came to, I think 5 months was when I bench pressed like my body weight and stuff like that, which at the
Mhm.
time was like 105 pounds. Um,
Yeah.
and so yeah, so that's what did it for me in the beginning was like I saw the progress really fast
Mhm.
and I was hooked on it after that.
Damn, yeah. Well, I honestly relate a lot to what you were talking about in the beginning about like the reasons why you kind of started lifting and then you're like, oh, my body isn't quite where I want it to be, and then lifting
Hmm.
kind of like took it to that level. And I feel like that's a common thing that I hear a lot of trans masculine people in particular kind of like talk about, like they started lifting for gender affirming reasons. Um, and but I noticed that your business caters to specifically trans people, and that includes like non-binary people. So not a lot of people might know if they don't like take the time to actually read your post that you identify as non-binary. Can you touch on what that means to you specifically and why that matters to be like open about that in your coaching practice?
Yeah, absolutely. So most of my clients are non-binary too, I would say. So
There you
they're
go.
yeah, they're catching on somehow, right? Um, I feel like what it means to me is just like, more freedom, I guess. Like I don't really identify with any particular genders. I feel like non-binary is a really big blanket. Like it could be like anything, right? Some people who are non-binary are they present one way versus the other, which I know I present very masculine and stuff like that. Or like people might identify as like a man and a woman, or like neither. So I enjoy the freedom and the label lessness that comes with that. Um, because I feel like for me it kind of changes back and forth. Like sometimes I feel like none of the above. Other times, I mean, recently I've been thinking more. It's like, yeah, I feel like I kind of identify as a man a little bit, but that's more so because of how other people perceive me, and I feel like how I walk in the world because I've been out on T for like a really long time
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And so with that, it's like I feel kind of this like responsibility to be a good man or to role model that, but when it's just me and myself, I'm like, yeah,
Mhm.
I don't really take to that label, and I kind of enjoy the freedom to invent myself in whatever feels right for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting, right? There are like there's so many different ways of like thinking about non-binary.
Hmm.
Like I think that's part of my like interest too.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
what exactly is non-binary,
Hmm.
right? Is it just an identity? I love that you talk about how it's about some sort of it's more than just about who you see yourself, but
Mhm.
also how people see you and perceive you. in
Mm-hmm.
different ways,
Mm-hmm.
right? I also feel like I fluctuate between, being seen as even being seen as a cis guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not really there are situations where I would be like, I don't want to disclose, I'm trans or I'm non-binary,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that's okay too, like, in that sense of like, how our understanding of like, I don't know, non-binary could be things like, why do we need to stick to not just binary structures of gender, but then binary ways of thinking or expressing
Mm-hmm.
ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I think that, that's a question that, I'm very curious.
Yeah, that was Sia Feng's question that they put in, by the way, just
Yeah,
for
yeah,
reference.
cool. Yeah, I mean, I just feel like too, it's like there's less rigidness, right? Because it's like,
Right, it's
what is
about
the roadmap?
freedom.
Right, what is the roadmap for being non-binary when every non-binary person is so different? And I feel like that's
Right.
true for a lot of trans people, but when you have those labels of like man and woman and stuff like that, it becomes like, yeah, there's societally ways to be a man and ways to be a woman that I just like I don't want to fuck with that at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's so true. And I'm actually curious, a following up question about when you talk about like most of your
Mhm.
clients do identify as non-binary. Do you see them that are more on the trans mass side or trans femme side?
Yeah, they're more on the trans
And
mask side.
why do you think that is so?
Yeah, I mean, I think that people probably are drawn to coaches that they can relate to or that they see
Right.
themselves in, at least partially, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't think that it's a bad thing to like to niche down and just be like, yeah, I'm really good at working with this population of people because I could speak from my experience and people can relate to that.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I think that makes very much
Hmm.
sense. I'm asking that because, like, when I think back my clients, right, in terms of
Hmm.
posing, very
Yeah.
interestingly, like most of my clients are cis men, like
Hmm.
cis heterosexual men.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, gay man, please come to me. Well,
Yeah,
You're
we
like,
speak the
what
same
vibe am I
language.
putting out there that this is what I'm getting? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Right? Is that true? Like, I mean, that's something, you talk about how, a lot of times, your clients or your students, are drawn to, who you are,
Yeah.
right? And so that is very interesting. Like, I've been like contemplating about that for quite a while, but,
Mhm.
I think that's very interesting. So let's like, since we're talking about coaching right now,
Yeah.
so what makes you jump from, someone who love, just working out and seeing yourself progress in terms of seeing a better body, right, to someone that decides that I want to help someone, I want to coach someone.
Mhm.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I just think like fitness really profoundly had a positive impact on my life.
Mm.
So there was that, right? Like I said, it's kind of like my source of everything positive right now. And it kind of gave me I felt like fitness gave me sort of more purpose to life as well. And with my own journey, it's like I knew what those barriers were to getting there. Um, I knew what it felt like to try to look for stuff that felt like it was speaking to me, but not really finding it. Feeling like, right, I am seeing trans people in fitness, but it's limited compared to how broad fitness is. And then even within trans fitness, right? Um, it was like some people just weren't really the types of coaches that I wanted. Like wanted someone who would teach me balance, who was kind, who was also very critical and reflective. Um, and I didn't always see that. So I knew what the barriers were. I knew how good it felt to be on the other side. And so I wanted to help people unlock that for themselves and help people navigate that.
And that
Yeah. So,
decision, does that decision come after so I because we have interviewed some coaches as well, like whether they're trans and non-binary coaches, and some of them do have that coaching as part of their career very early on, like in
Hmm.
college or stuff like that.
Hmm.
And they're very like very determined to be like, okay, I'm going to study something like whether it's
Yeah.
sports science, nutrition, or like
mhm.
coaching or whatever,
Hmm.
right? Do you have a similar kind of career path, or is it something else that you are looking
Yeah.
at?
Yeah, so I did a full career switch, right? Prior
Mm.
to starting as a fitness coach in 2020, I worked in media before that. So it was like
Mm.
I did video and photography, and that was my first passion. That was what I was passionate about since I was 12. Um, and what I always wanted to work in. But, then working in that, it was fun. I don't regret it at all. I had a really great time doing what I did, and chased a lot of younger dreams then. But one thing that did feel like it was missing for me from that type of work was like I just felt like I wasn't really helping anybody.
Yeah.
Like I used to edit like kind of like these like celebrity videos at my job and stuff like that, and I was just kind of like, who cares? Right? Like it was fun to be in that environment. I had met a lot of celebrities through my job as well. But it was just like, I'm just like, God, like at the end of the day, I'm like, who cares? I don't. I
Yeah.
know some people do, but it just didn't feel as meaningful. So when I started coaching, I did it part-time. Um, for Yeah, I did it part-time for a little bit before I did it full-time. It just felt really good. And it more and more, it just felt like the right thing. And so leaving my last career, it was not the easiest thing to do, but
Mm.
it also wasn't hard to do either. Really, all
Yeah.
I had to let go of was like an old identity, an old way of thinking, and just remembering that, just because I worked hard toward my last career and it doesn't serve me anymore, I don't want to waste any more time doing something that doesn't serve me. So,
There you go.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm sorry. I'm like
yeah,
curious about everything
Yeah,
yeah,
about
I,
you.
I keep waiting for the next question, but Siafeng's got all the follow-up questions, so I'm just
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so
Go for it.
yeah, I'm just very curious. Like, so when you switch from when you said you switch from part time and then full time, right? So is it an in person? Because I do see a lot. We were going to touch on that more, a little bit more as well. But I do see, I can see why you make a lot of like very very intriguing and useful like contents right on social
Mhm.
media, and I think that is something that attracts me a lot, right? And I can see why because you came from a
Mhm.
background
that's what I
doing
was thinking as
videos and
well. Yeah.
photography.
Mhm.
And so I'm curious, like when you started coaching, when you said you started coaching part time, did you always already did something online, or is it a combination
Yeah.
of like online and in person
Yep.
coaching?
Yeah, I did in person. So when I lived in New York, I had this big basement that I built like a home gym out of. And
Mm.
so I'd take people down there. I taught classes at a gym locally as well. And then I did online coaching too. So I kind of did a little bit of everything because I was like, I want to expose myself to a lot of stuff. I want to get, better at this. So I did a little bit of everything. Ultimately, didn't like group classes. That I only did for 6 months. In-person training was great. I felt like that experience is crucial for anybody that coaches online. It's
Mm.
like if you have worked with people in person, that's gonna make you a way, way, way better coach online. In fact,
Mm.
I don't even think that I would hire a coach that has never trained in person.
Mm. Okay,
Interesting.
that's yeah. And when you said, when you had first had, a small space for you to, really coach other people,
Mhm.
were they already exclusively trans people, or are they a bunch of like, more diverse group? And
Yeah,
why specifically you want to like, target your clients or your students,
yeah.
as trans people?
For sure. Well, with working with queer and trans people, like that was just a no-brainer because
Mm.
it's like I don't even really have straight friends. Like
Oh.
You're like,
overall,
these are
right?
the people that are around me, so I might as well
Yeah,
just.
exactly. So it's like I don't
Mm.
I don't have friends that are cis and straight, right? It's like I have cis friends, they're queer though. So
Hmm.
it's just like I only know queer and trans people, and that's kind of how it's been like most of my life.
Got it.
Um, so I just like being around my community. I just like being able to like be myself and stuff like that. And for other people to be themselves as well. So that was just like a no-brainer. That was never even a thought in my head with like whether or not I would like who I would work with. Um, yeah. So it's always been queer and trans folks.
Mm.
Mm.
So it wasn't uh like it like a very specific. It was just kind of like this is my community. I'm already around all these people, so I just want
Yeah.
to serve the people that
Yeah.
I'm. Yeah,
Absolutely. And it's like I mean, there's a need for it too,
for
right? It's like
sure.
why would I want to coach like like cis straight people when it's like they have access to any coach that they want, and they could go
It's
to
true.
any gym like that's locally owned, or like, you know, they can even go to a big box gym and work with anybody there and get use out of it. But it's like so many trans people that I know, like, yes, they can access a local gym and work with a trainer, and sometimes, you know, those trainers are queer friendly, but they don't fully understand like the trans experience because they've never lived that. So
Hmm.
Mm.
Do you feel like there's any like yeah, I don't know if we worded this correctly in the questions we sent you, but any benefits or challenges specifically in catering exclusively to trans clients? Like, do you have challenges in getting a full roster, or are there benefits to your like mental health? Like, what does that kind of look like for you?
like from a business standpoint, or are you talking about challenges that the clients face?
Yeah, I mean, coaching challenges, business kind of like what
Yeah.
whatever kind of comes to mind immediately.
I don't think that there's really challenges in getting clients because I feel like
Mm.
Okay.
people really like are looking for like trans coaches and stuff like that, and they want
Yeah.
that community. So, yeah, I don't think that that's necessarily an issue if you're working online. Maybe it would be more so if I was like in person only, right?
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, not on that side. In terms of like challenges that clients face, you know, it's like fitness challenges and goals, like everybody that's a beginner, they're like 80% similar. But it's just like trans people relate to things differently, right? So we
Right.
need to have these conversations in a slightly different way.
Hmm.
That makes people feel comfortable and makes them feel like they're connected to this and they're engaged in this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
And
the just like the right messages.
I can imagine that must be a challenge because I know from getting like personal training certifications and stuff
Mm,
myself, like there's no guidance on how to talk to trans people about the the specific goals and unique challenges that they have. You kind of have to like figure out your scope of practice on the fly for what that looks like. So I'm sure in
mm.
the beginning when you started coaching, it might have been like a tricky thing to navigate. I don't know. That's my guess.
Well, you know, it's like if I were to work with cishet people,
Mm.
probably ask them the same questions, but they just might have slightly different answers, right?
Okay.
Well, actually, what is interesting too is like I have worked with some cis folks before, and it's like I feel like trans masc people, because one thing that I do in intakes with new clients or potential clients is like I ask a lot of like why questions, right? Okay, you say you want to build chest and shoulders, like why that specifically? I really try to
Mm.
get deep behind it
Mm.
and really understand like where is this coming from? Why is it important? Like why does it matter? Why do you need these specific things?
Mm.
And I feel like when I ask, not all, not like every cis person, but like I've noticed this as a pattern a little bit more that the cis guys won't have as deep of
Mm.
answers. Like
Mm.
they're like, oh, I want to get jacked up. I don't know. Like it just seems cool, right? Whereas like I feel like trans people will have really deep, layered answers for why all of that's important to them. You know,
Mm.
how they feel like this is going to impact their life, how they feel like this is going to impact them outside of fitness as well.
Right.
So, yeah, like to ask a lot of those questions. I just think that they're probably just going to be different person to person or like depending on people's identities and stuff like that. But it's like I'd always ask those same questions. I'd always try to get deep underneath, like, you know, why are you here kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that makes sense. That makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. You did
Yeah.
mention about like, I mean, your content, right, on social media seems to also like mostly targeting like trans mass folks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we are curious about whether, whether you have like trans femme clients, and if
Mm-hmm.
so, like, do you think there are different, protocols that you're using, or do they face different challenges?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, absolutely. I do have a few trans femme clients here and there and stuff like that. Yeah, it's like I want to welcome like any queer person or really anybody who feels like my messages resonate with them. So
Hmm.
most of the time, right, that's going to be other trans masc and non-binary folks that are more on the masculine side. But yeah, I do also get like cis queer people, cis gay guys, and trans femmes as well. Um, I think that yes, the approach that I would take with them is different, but also it's like even if you're comparing like one trans mask person to the next, like between those two people, the approach might be really different as well.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's like I'm gonna ask them the same questions too, right? Like if they say something like I want to work on my body in a way that feels more feminine, I'm also gonna ask them. I don't want to assume what that necessarily means to that person, right? I'm also gonna ask them like, what exactly does that mean or entail or look like for you or feel like?
And do
Yeah.
you see, because I do have like, I as well have like, more femme and more mass like clientels. And in my experience, like it seems like, trans mass folks do have pretty similar goals in terms of like, how they want their bodies to look like,
Yeah.
Hmm.
typically like more masculine, more jacked, or,
Right.
specifically,
Hmm.
maybe improving, certain parts of the body like the chest or stuff like that. Where
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
trans
Right.
femme
That's
folks,
true.
right, they seems like to be like, okay, I just want to get fit. I don't want to look fat, or I want fat to be, allocated in my
Hmm.
ass, for
Hmm.
instance, right? So do
Yes.
you still, that's a pretty binary, right? So
Yeah.
do you see
Yeah.
that like, do you see that phenomenon as well in your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. But again, it's like surface level goals sound the
Mm,
same, but then you dig deeper and
Mm-hmm.
it's
mm.
all different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
Do you
but
have an
yeah, I
example?
definitely see that as well. Do I have an example? Yeah.
Mm,
I mean, so like sometimes people will be like, yeah, I want to lift weights so I feel more masculine. And so for some people, that is really about the looks.
mm,
Um, and 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 then it's like why, they want to maybe fit clothes a little bit better. For other people, maybe it's not so much about the looks, but it's more about like the act itself. They're like, I don't really care too much what I look like. Some muscle mass would be cool, but I feel like even just the act of going to the gym,
Mm-hmm.
lifting heavy and having confidence navigating that space makes me feel affirmed in my
Yeah.
gender. So yeah, so it's like similar goal of like, yeah, I want to, surface goal, right? I want to
Mm-hmm.
go to the gym, build muscle, but two different, sort of perspectives on it.
mm. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
And I also thinking about like because you have a lot of trans mass folks that I believe like there will be ranges right
Hmm.
between having done top surgery and not.
Yep.
And I remember like some of your contents that are I just had a very great impression of it. Is that
Hmm.
you talk about how of course there are people who don't do top surgery but still being able to attain a certain
Hmm.
muscular look of the chest, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And so. I'm curious about, in terms of training, with regards to like people who have done or have not done top surgery. Do you use a similar protocol or a different protocol in terms of like,
Yeah, for
managing the
training like
training?
physique and stuff like that.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, it depends on if they plan on getting top surgery or not. So
Mm,
if someone tells me that they're not planning on getting top surgery anytime soon, but they want a more masculine physique, and usually they're gonna explain that as like it's broader up top and stuff like that.
mm,
We'll do less chest exercises and more focused on back and like
Yeah.
shoulders,
oh,
right? Because it's like,
That makes
well, if you
sense.
if you don't plan on getting top surgery, yeah, maybe some like incline chest work just to kind of get it up here. But it's like if you don't plan on getting top surgery and that's not going to be shown, then it's
Right.
like, yeah, your time and energy might be better allocated for like the back or something like that.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense because you can maybe get some visible, like I have like visible pec minor right here, but
yeah,
like that's basically it. And
yeah,
it's
like
like
that
re
flex
really
shoulder
the
line.
right the delts and the back are really what make the physique look more masculine if you're not going to be seeing your pecs really like at all.
Yeah, 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 exactly.
but also
Yeah.
think that there are people like myself, right? So have not done
Hmm.
top surgery,
Hmm.
but I love to be topless,
Yeah,
right?
but
Right,
you're
right,
a
right, right, right.
genetic freak,
Yeah,
man.
it's
That's
true.
different.
I think that's true. Yeah, I think that's true. It's like it's rare that
Hmm.
people build their chest out to the point where they're comfortable being shirtless, like
Hmm.
pre-top
Mm,
surgery, right? It's like I just want to be
mm,
truthful about that. So in
Right.
that video
yes.
that you're referring to, it's like I do talk about like it's like yeah, it is possible, and it's like this client is kind of an example of it. And I was thinking of you. I was like, yeah, I have a friend that also does that, and I could think of maybe a handful of other people, but
Hmm.
most people aren't going to be able to do
Mm,
that. So it's like I just want to
Yeah.
set that expectation. You could try and go for it and see how you feel, but it is really is a win-win situation, right? Because it's either like cool, you do have a chest that you feel like you can be shirtless without getting top surgery,
Yeah.
or it's like you have clarity on like, okay, I need to get top surgery, and then when you're out of top surgery, now you have a nice chest because you've built it up so much. So
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense, right?
Mm.
And just the wide range, right, of people who want to do or not,
Yeah.
they don't do the surgery itself and wanting to showcase showcase themselves like in a topless sense,
Yeah.
right? And just to follow up with like, I mean, you have done top surgery yourself, so I'm sure you have that experience, right, of the surgery and the post-surgery kind of training. And yeah, I've been like talking to some of fitness coaches, non-binary coaches as well, who have been training people who have done top surgery. And one thing they talk about is like, some of the challenges, right, of training people, after they have done top surgery. So do you see your clients also have a similar, like what types of like potential challenges in, for example, training chest or even, upper body, right, after their top surgery?
Yeah. That's usually, I feel like, limitation in their shoulder range of motion, their external rotation, and like just like a weak upper back or like weak back in general. So, I have built out a couple different phases for, people from post-op like week 6 to 16. And so usually what I begin with is like, there's mobility that you want to do. I say like 3 days a week minimum, but really you could do mobility every day. So I have mobility exercise, small stretches, for your shoulders, neck, things like that. For the training, it's like seated cable rows, scaption raises, face pulls, any leg stuff can be done pretty normal. Well, not like squats and stuff like that, but
Not
you
heavy,
could do,
yeah.
yeah, you could do like leg press. You could do like some light like goblet squats or like lunges. You could do split squats, things like that if you're comfortable. So legs, I tend to have people go a little bit heavier on off the gate. But yeah, for back and shoulders and stuff like that, I think we're really gonna protect like range of motion for a little bit. Maybe for chest, all we're doing is like wall push-ups those first couple weeks, like from like weeks like 6 to 9 post-op. Not necessarily to build anything, but just to move, just to
Right.
get you moving, get a little blood in the muscles, right? And then at that point, some people, depending on their range of motion, like some people are ready for like really light, high rep, let's say like machine chest presses. And I like machines because it's like you can adjust that range of motion so it's not cranked all the way back and you're not at any risk of things being wobbly and going sideways. Or like people might do like incline push-ups. So it's like wall push-ups are too easy. They could take it down a little bit.
Right.
And then, yeah, after weeks 9 or 10, that's when I have people start doing like light overhead shoulder presses. And maybe they could move to like an incline bench press at this point. So it just kind of depends on where people are. Most people at week 6 post-op, they can only get their arms up to here or like here max, right? So yeah, usually by week 9 or 10, especially if you're doing your stretches and mobility, you can do some light overhead stuff now. And then I would say after week 12, so from weeks 12 to 20, that's when people start returning to or exceeding their strength before top surgery. But from week 6 to 12, or maybe for some people even weeks 6 to 16, you really want to be cautious, protect your range of motion, right? Do lighter weights, higher reps, things like that.
Yeah, well, that makes sense, right? Because around 6 weeks, I mean, because you're basically starting, excuse me, immediately after their doctor has like cleared them for like exercise related movements. So, and they're still probably super stiff and sore. So yeah, it makes sense to just start off very slow and steady in the beginning.
Yeah, but you should start though, because
Of
what
course,
happens,
yeah.
what I see a lot of is like people will come and find me, let's say like 6 months post-op or 1 year
Oh
post-op. And
no.
if they haven't been doing anything in between, chances are you still have the same mobility issues as someone at like week 12 to 16 who
Yeah.
was doing the mobility stuff, right? So it's like you still have mobility limitations or like upper back muscle weaknesses, or like tightness, right? That we then have to address now, as opposed to like you could have done this sooner and had like a better and a faster recovery.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just it's just very useful, like for people who are thinking about top surgery or even like post-top
Mm,
surgery kind of like the training routine.
yeah.
I'm curious about whether you would advocate people to actually do some sort of training or I don't know mobility exercise before the top surgery,
Oh yeah,
because it seems like
absolutely.
we mentioned a lot about post-surgery, right? But
Yeah.
what about pre-surgery? Like
Yeah,
what would your
for
protocols
sure.
be?
I feel like a lot of people have a lot of strength in their upper, their mid back. So we're talking about like, all the trap muscles,
Hmm.
rhomboids, like external rotation, all of that. People don't have very strong backs. And that's like not even just
Mm,
trans people, that's like kind of everybody. And I feel like for trans mask folks, it's a little bit worse because people are hunching over or they might have
mm.
been binding for like the last 2 years or something like that.
Yeah.
So usually when anybody starts with me, it's like I already account for like 80-90% of the population has this issue anyway. So we're going to make sure that you have not just the big back exercises that are for show, like pull-ups and pull downs and
Hmm.
rows, right? But also the small stuff, band Y raises, I's, Y's, and T's, face pulls, external rotation like shoulder presses that are not really to build shoulder muscle, but just to work your external rotation. So it's like
Absolutely.
I'm already going to put all those things in for just the average person anyway, and these are all things that are very helpful for coming up to top surgery. So that way, you come out of it, you have a stronger back, you're able to support that posture and fight some of that tightness that's going to be happening your first weeks post op.
That's so interesting because I talked to some, I'm doing my research in Taiwan, also looking
Mm-hmm.
into, this whole phenomenon about top surgery and people, preparing for top surgery in terms of training. And
Mm-hmm.
one thing they did mention, like, some of the coaches that I talked to, rarely mention about back exercise. And I think that is something very curious for me. Like,
Really?
yeah, they
Yeah.
mention more about, being able to train incline chest. Like, you
Okay.
should be able
Interesting.
training more on the incline chest so
Mm-hmm.
that I don't know, maybe in the case of Taiwan, for instance, they
Mm-hmm.
are a lot of folks are like they're skinnier. And
Yeah.
so they actually a lot of times do not have enough chest
Right.
tissues to be cut off,
Yeah.
from the beginning. So I
Well,
think
of
that's
course.
a
I mean, people are going to work their chest too, but the thing is, everybody already knows and thinks to do that, right? They're
ah,
Right.
like, I want to
That's what I
build
was
chest so I can have
thinking.
a nice chest at a top surgery. So that's why I want to talk about back because I'm like, you
mm,
already, if you're going to get top surgery soon, you're already thinking about training your chest.
You're
So I'm
benching
here to
5 days a
remind
week.
you. Yeah, I'm here to remind you of the other
mm.
stuff that maybe you're forgetting.
That's interesting. That's interesting because I think, in the case of like Taiwan, for instance, a lot of folks do not train at all after before the surgery. Like they have no idea that they need to train. They feel like, I need to get off this thing first and then I will be confident, getting to the gym, to train. And so a lot of times they're only exposed to training
Right,
after the surgery. And so there are problems that you just mentioned.
right.
Like, they also mentioned about the scarring itself,
Hmm.
right? The tension of the scar
Hmm.
actually, limits the mobility. So I feel like, that's something, very, it's overlapping, but they're also like kind of different, protocol in terms of training. I think that's
Yeah,
so curious about, how,
yeah.
people, tackle the issue.
Yeah, but I mean, really, it's like train your whole body, right? Like if you hit like well-rounded whole body training, you're just gonna be more prepared in general.
Yep.
So yeah,
Yeah, and I always tell people you have to train your lower body, right? A lot
yeah,
of people, trans folks, they think of like, okay, I need that upper body look because that's how I wear my clothes and
right.
stuff like that. But, to me, only when you really train your lower part of the body, your legs, and your legs become strong, then your upper body is going to be strong too.
Yeah,
Like you rarely see a person with very strong legs and very skinny upper
It's
body.
usually
They
the
used
other way
to.
around.
Yeah, right. It's usually the
yeah.
other way around. And so, and I feel like, it's almost like the metaphor of a tree, you need those roots, that anchor your body and,
Hmm. Hmm.
form the foundation. And then, when you train the upper body it's easier,
Right.
I think in a lot of ways.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. So let's switch the
Uh,
topic a little bit.
yeah, we have
Unless Matt,
16 minutes left, by the
All
way.
right.
I know
Just
you're like
putting that
very
out there.
specific. I know, I know.
I it's because Landon said they only have an hour, so I want to respect their time. But go ahead.
For sure.
No, we're in perfect time.
Yeah,
Okay.
And so like
perfect.
now we want to like switch something wider,
Hmm.
right? We talk something more specific about coaching, about training. And one thing I noticed from your bio and also from your, your social media, right, is that you mentioned a lot about, ideas about masculinity, and specifically, your way of coaching is trying to tackle, right, the toxic masculinity culture that is, kind of embedded, right, in whether in the fitness industry or in general. So
Hmm.
can you tell us a little bit more about what do you think of how like toxic masculinity creates, stress or burdens on trans folks, especially within the fitness industry? Um, yeah, let's
Yeah,
begin with that.
absolutely. Well, I feel like in the fitness industry as a whole, I think that it can create kind of a more punitive relationship with fitness. Like I have to train because I'm weak, right? Like, and
Mm,
that's sort of like you're approaching it from a negative thing, and that can be motivating for people. But
Hmm.
it's like I want to create this association with fitness for my clients that is positive. So it's like I'm here working in the gym to gain something positive as opposed to avoiding something negative. And
Hmm.
even though like that's kind of the same side, it's like two sides of the same coin. But I think that it could make a really big difference. But yeah, what I kind of see with like men's gym motivation a lot is like, like I'm weak. I need to be able to take on the world, like all this kind of stuff. And it's just like I don't think that it resonates with a lot of the people that I work with. It doesn't feel very motivating for them to think that way. And for me personally, that sort of really hyper masculine fitness space was a deterrent for me
Hmm.
because I'm like, I don't relate to these people. I don't want to be friends with guys like this. And so it just felt like it's like, okay, well then there's nothing here for me kind of thing. So I'm gonna be moving along. And I think that that's why in the earlier part of my fitness journey, like it was so on and off, right? Because it was like I wasn't able to find other people or a space that made me feel like I was connected to the way that they were relating to or talking about fitness.
Hmm.
mm. And I also think that, another form of toxic masculinity is that a lot of people train their bodies, especially I feel like cis men, right?
Mm-hmm.
They train their bodies for others, right? They train
Mm-hmm.
their bodies for like, to make themselves more appealing to girls or
Mm-hmm.
whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Or they use the space of the gym where which I think is
Yeah.
normal, to meet girls, right? To look
Uh-huh.
attractive, my training partner right now, like there's this head guys, they only talk about girls, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Whenever.
yeah. And I would hear that at the gym too. Like I remember one time, like when I started doing 5x5, I was in the locker room and like this guy that I saw there every day, and he was really jacked, really muscular. He was like talking to some other guy about like girls' asses based on race or something like that. And I'm
What
just
the
like,
fuck?
ugh, like right. And it's like that is so gross. And it's like
Yeah.
if that's who you associate with fitness, it's like you're not gonna want to do fitness because or lift because it's like that's the crowd that's it that's in here, right? But it's like I just want to show people it's like that's not the only crowd, right? It's like
Mm.
they're gonna exist, but it's like we could also have our own spaces as well.
So
Yeah. And
what
like
would
Sifung said, we tend to train, I think, more for ourselves than for other people,
Yeah, trans
trans
folks
people.
definitely, definitely. In fact, if I kind of catch on in the intake that their goals are sort of related to, maybe outside expectations or things like that, I'm kind of like, hold up. So, outside of what you feel like, pressure to do or whatever,
Hmm.
right? Why do you want this for yourself?
Right.
So I really try to get to the bottom. I really try to remove that for people and just help them explore like, okay, maybe it's like so ingrained that, masculine people should look a certain way that like you think that that's your goal, but what is it actually if we take that away?
that reminds me a lot like at the beginning when I first started my own fitness journey.
Hmm.
I only want six packs,
Yeah,
because that's how the society thinks about, a
right,
attractive guy look like,
right.
that you will have like just six packs, not even like wide shoulders or whatever. It's just like a model, like male model look, right?
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, you start to understand that, you don't train yourself or train your body just for the others, right? Just how just for how other want to, how other perceives you. Even though I feel like, it's very hard to kind of just dissociate completely that, others' opinions on you, on your body doesn't matter. I don't think it's true that you can completely isolate that. But, the more that you're able to do it for the sake of yourself or for whether it's for your health or for your, just for your aesthetics, right?
Yeah,
I think that would be a healthier like version of
absolutely.
masculinity in general.
hmm You're right. I mean, you can't separate how other people perceive you because that plays a big role in
Mm.
how comfortable or not people like it's like if people are reading you as the gender that you want all the time, right? That's a good thing. Now it's like you don't have to be self-conscious about that. You can focus on other things, but yeah, so it's like how we look does matter, but you're right. It's like it can't 100% be about that. We do have to find what the meaning for ourselves on a day-to-day basis.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, and I was gonna, well, actually, I think you kind of already answered. I was gonna ask how your coaching practices do you feel like kind of push back against this like toxic masculinity? But you kind of talked a little bit about everything from the
Mhm.
intake form and kind of the example that you tried to set for your clients and all that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I explicitly put that out there so that people that are attracted to that find me, right? Because I do feel like even within trans fitness, there is hyper masculinity in
Mm.
trans fitness, and that's something that I
Absolutely.
felt like was even a barrier to me when I first started. Was like, okay, I do see some trans fitness folks, but they're almost exactly the same as the cis guys. That wasn't the greatest feeling, so that's why I put that out there, is just so that way the right people can find me and know that it's like, I'm very aware of these things. I want to be reflective of these things and have conversations that might not be happening elsewhere. So yeah, I think it kind of just comes across through, like you said, it's like, yeah, the intake, how we talk about fitness on a daily basis, right? How we talk about it on a daily basis is really important. um Leading by example, and then we do have group calls where we talk about gender and things like that, maybe once a month or so,
Oh, cool.
that are more like free flowing conversations.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's cool.
Mhm.
Sifa, unless you have any follow-up questions, I want to go ahead and ask kind of the last question, start wrapping up, if that's okay.
Yes.
Okay, just because I'm keeping an eye on the time here. So last question, and then we have one Q&A question. What are your, kind of shifting a little bit, what are your personal fitness goals moving forward? Because we see you doing a lot of other stuff besides lifting on your social media, so I'm curious.
Yeah. So, for the first 5 years or so, I feel like I was all about lifting, all about trying to build muscle. And it's like I would still love to be bigger always. But I feel like I'm finally at this point where I look at my body and I feel like it's there finally, right? To where I want it to be.
Mhm.
And so I just like to start learning other things. I did a Spartan in April, and I was like totally out of breath, and it was really hilly and terrible. And I was just like, wow, like this is kind of ridiculous that I have all this like visible muscle, and I'm really out of shape. I'm literally I'm
Mm.
literally on the trail seeing like some old guy who like isn't like the stereotypical like fit looking person, is like over 50 with white hair, like surpassing me on the trail, right?
Yeah.
So after that I was like, this is ridiculous. Like when you just lift, you're really missing a big part of actual physical
Mm,
fitness. So
Mm.
since then, I've been taking cardio really seriously, so I'm running a 10K at the end of the month. I would really
nice.
love to do like the Spartan trifecta. So that's like when you do the 5K, the 10K, the 21K, within the same year, and then there's also the trifecta weekend where you do it all on one weekend. So I'd love to do that, you know, and maintain my muscle or maybe grow a little bit more slowly during that. So, the last 2 years especially, I've been really into like bodybuilding style exercises. So lots of isolation work, lots of machine work, and now it's kind of like my next phase. I want to return to some of those like barbell movements a little bit more.
Mm,
Yeah, I've been doing front squats after, a year plus of like of Smith machine hack squats and leg press and like extensions and stuff like that. And it's like I love the way that my core and my lower back feels and how engaged my entire body feels doing like a barbell front squat. So I feel like, you know, my next couple of months or the next year, I'd like to focus on that a little bit more. Bodybuilding is really cool to me because it's like working on aesthetics, like working on all those fine details. I feel like is really fun and really cool to be able to see that on your body. But I am getting married next year, and my partner was like, no bodybuilding, no, you know, like no like cut phases around the wedding and the honeymoon and stuff like that. So I'm like, all right, for 2025, my goals are going to be more about like, yeah, I guess like a combination of strength and cardio, more sort of like functional fitness, um, eating, you know, I'm not really gonna cut bulk like next year, I don't think, to the same degree that I have before. I think I'm more just gonna be in like a slight surplus, try to stay on the leaner side, but like enough energy to do all my workouts, that sort of thing. Yeah,
Got it. Cool.
then we'll think about 2026 at when it gets
When
there
it
and see
gets
what I
there,
want
you
to do then.
gotta get married
Yeah,
first.
yeah,
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 and then the mood swings when you're prepping. So I
Yeah,
would say
don't do
no.
that.
yeah, yeah. So,
For sure.
mhm,
All right, we have some Q&A questions, but we only have 5 minutes. So I guess
sure.
the briefest one, I have to pick one. There's like four.
Or you can
Okay.
Um,
just briefly have the few questions and let them
Yeah,
choose what to answer.
sure.
sure, yeah. I mean, one is, do you deal with clients who have disabilities or chronic back issues like slip disc? And another one is, do you have any advice for bodybuilding and hypermobility? I don't know what they
Yeah,
mean by that, but
sure. So first question, yeah, I have clients that have chronic pain of different kind all the time and hypermobility as well. So it really is just starting small. We would have to be more cautious with our progressions and things like that. And then it's like you have to put in a lot more time. So for example, one of my clients who I've been working with for 2 years, when they started out, they had a slip disc and they said that they would hike maybe for 30 minutes and get back pain and have to lay down. So after training, you know, and it wasn't a lot because they have two young children. So they do like 2 days of strength training a week max. Last year, they were able to do a 10K obstacle course, and we were doing it really slow because if we had a group of like 10 people, that was 4 hours on their feet on a trail, no back pain. So it's
oh,
like if you work on the right stuff, right? You're working on leg strength, you're working on back strength, you're working on core strength, like everything, you could get there. There can be different modifications and things like that as well. I have another client that has sort of like a degenerative back thing. We've also been working together for a while. He doesn't feel as comfortable doing like free weights and things like that. But you know, so then we kind of do like all machines for the mostly machines at Planet Fitness, and that works well for him. So it just depends on, you know, it's all about finding what you feel comfortable with, and then making sure that we're progressing on track from there. And then when you do have pain, movement is really the key to helping that. A lot of people think if I have pain, the answer is to not do anything or to slow down. Well, we do want to take it slower, right? But usually it's like if folks that have chronic pain stop moving after they're used to it, that's when the pain comes back. So it's like, you know, maybe for 2 weeks, their work was really busy. They couldn't get to the gym. That's when their pain comes back. They go back to the gym. It goes away after a week again. Um,
got it.
um, for bodybuilding and hypermobility, yeah, I think you should record yourself a lot. So one thing, it's like I kind of have like hyperextended elbows. I don't know if you can really see that, but it did cause me elbow issues before because it's like I'll lock out, it's past straight, all the weight is going to the joint. So
Right.
when I really look at it, this is straight, right? This is kind of where I want to keep my elbow at the top of, let's say, a shoulder press or a bench press. And then instead of locking out and resting on your joint, you want to make sure that you're keeping whatever target muscle flexed. So it's like I'm up top, but I'm going to keep my chest or my shoulder flexed so that way that tension goes to the muscle and not to your joint. So, you know, I think you may need like the help of like a doctor or a PT or something like that to kind of figure out like where should the range of motion end for a specific movement to keep it in the right muscle groups. And then it's like you have to be diligent about keeping it there yourself. And I think the best way to do that is to record yourself a lot and review your own video. So there's that. For beginners that have hypermobility, you know, I might have them on like some machines and things like that. Again, just so that way, like, you know, as you're lifting heavy, let's say for shoulder press, like you don't have that risk of like having it be shaky and now it's going somewhere that it shouldn't. So machines could be like a good option too when you're starting out.
Got it. Well, thank you so much I mean, those are really, really good answers, and I'm sure like the people who asked those questions appreciated it. Yeah, let's get Landon out of here because it's officially it's 2 p.m. Eastern. So all right. Well, like, yeah, thank you so much for your time. And just as a reminder for everybody who's still here, about our competition on November 23rd in Atlanta, Georgia, you can still sign up to compete or get your tickets. Information on that is on our Instagram feed and on our website. And if you follow us on Instagram, keep an eye out there because we'll have information for the live stream as well if you can't make it out to Atlanta to actually watch the event. And yeah, thank you so much, Landon. I mean, this was an incredible conversation that we got done in an hour, and it was just jam-packed with information. So we really appreciate your time.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Like, you know, and the last thing, like, just want to remind everyone who is here and who might not be here, is that like we will upload the whole conversation on our YouTube channel. So you can always review back, you know, for Landon's like really, really informative journey and also like inspiring kind of training protocols. And once again, thank you so much for being here with us. And then we shall talk soon. And hopefully, you know, we will see some of your clients coming to our competition as well.
Yeah, I do tell them about it. So hopefully someone can make it out one day.
Yes,
Awesome.
That'd be awesome.
for sure. Thank you so much. And, you know, everyone else and you as well, and, you know, Ned as well, have a good day. And we shall look forward to the next Fireside Chat.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Thank you so
Have a
much,
good day.
everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.